Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the morning show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? It is Wednesday, May 2nd, 2018. Oh, it just occurred to me we are 2 days away from that ridiculous other fake holiday that I love to celebrate. Not to talk like a pirate day. When does that come? Does that come in September again? I really have to look that up. But May the 4th, Star Wars Day, May the 4th. Right? Get it? I'm like about 7 Star Wars movies behind. So perhaps I can spend the rest of the week, yeah, right, catching up in all of my spare time. We're ready to go, though. It doesn't matter that we're not ready for the news. The news is ready for us, even if we don't know exactly what that is supposed to mean. Daily Co's Radio is live now. Bill knows what it means. Today, the sanity of Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman, is saved by the on-air cavalry. Greg Dworkin and Joan McCarter will be here with us, of course, to the relief of both America and Mrs. Kagro X, who's, well, there's no relief for her when it comes to this show, except the fact that, of course, she is at work and doesn't listen to this show. It would be like every other 2-hour period of her life, though, listening to me go on and on about these things. So much to do today, and yet so much we probably won't get to, but of course we are, as always, followed up by Justice Putnam's West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, right here also on Netroots Radio, and the backup to those of you who come to listen for the news and are seriously disappointed each day as we focus on 1 or 2 or 3 or 11 or 15 very important or alternatively not very important at all items from the news, admittedly from the news. Justice is always there to back us up with all of the other things we missed, plus a couple of additional angles on the things we did get to. And there are many things on tap for today. As you know, you may have been watching, I think the big Twitter news over the last 24 hours, as far as I can tell by looking at what did I say over the last couple of minutes out there. We got some fake news situations going on. Donald Trump, I mean, okay. Look, we're down to the bottom of the barrel on the best people here and on the doctors in particular. Greg will be with us today, so excellent way to follow up on the physician news. We're, of course, already beyond belief with Ronnie Jackson, and he's out, and I got a little bit more detail. Yesterday we heard sort of during the show secondhand, and now we've got some articles on the subject, how the Pences, that would be including Mrs. Pence, have weighed in on the Ronnie Jackson controversy. Trump had spent the weekend essentially insisting that all of the accusations made against Ronnie Jackson were fake news and no one could verify it, and so it was therefore fake news. In fact, it didn't happen, as opposed to allegations have been made and these people are, for whatever reason, refusing to back up those allegations. It doesn't obviate or doesn't eliminate the accusations or counteract them in any way. It just, the Secret Service won't agree to verify those charges. So Mike Pence and Mrs. Pence, what's Mrs. is Karen Pence, to the rescue. Apparently their physician, there's a White House physician who takes care of the president, and there is I don't know, what do they call the physician to the vice president? Do they call him just that? Is he the Naval Observatory physician? I don't know exactly what he would be, but he had a run-in at some point with Ronnie Jackson as well, and made some reports and briefed the Pences about it, and the Pences complained, and that seems to corroborate the situation. In fact, don't take my word for it. I mean, well, you should take my word for it, as opposed to taking the word of Republican Senator Johnny Isakson, because why would you take a Republican senator's word for anything? But this time he went on CNN to say that Trump's statement is false. In other words, it's fake news, that Trump says that Ronnie Jackson's allegations the Ronnie Jackson allegations of misconduct were wrong. And he says that the CNN story of Pence's doctor raising concerns about Jackson corroborates those allegations. So how do you like that? We have that on tap. And, of course, the bigger news about Trump and his physicians. What's his name? Harold Borstein? I'm going to have to look at the article. I've seen it. Bornstein, but I thought it was like Boorstein. I don't know. CNN has Bornstein. Harold Bornstein. He's like the long-haired, weirdo, round sunglasses doctor who originally wrote that crazy-ass letter, and it was in 2015 that he did it, I guess. I didn't even realize it was that long ago. Stating that, what I remember from it, maybe what you remember from it, was that Trump was in astonishingly excellent health. And that this was the one that swore that he was, should he be elected, he would be the healthiest person ever elected to the office of the President of the United States. And it was bizarre. And quite honestly, I guess 99% of the people I knew, or really 99% of the people of whom I was aware in the world, basically said outright or surely believed in their hearts that letter had been written by or dictated by Donald Trump and no one else. And in the hubbub of news from Bornstein, it now comes to light, I guess. If you believe Bornstein, and I don't know, maybe you shouldn't. He says, no, I didn't write the letter. It was dictated to me by Trump. Now, we did know that he had said when the letter came out, I wrote it in about 5 minutes, and the president waited outside in a limo. Or he wasn't the president then, Mr. Trump. Or he might not even have been in the limo. He sent the limo over to pick up this letter, and I dashed it off in a few minutes, which was troubling to begin with. But and then slowly, in drips and drabs over the course of the couple of years since then, he's made a few comments on it, like, well, he might be really healthy, he might not be. If he dies, he dies, which I thought was an interesting take for a doctor. And then it sort of escalated to, you said he would be the healthiest person ever elected to the office. Isn't that a little odd? And he has qualified that more recently by saying, well, it's sort of true. I mean, everybody else I guess he means who has held the office, is either dead because they're historical figures who held the office, 200 years ago, or they're sick because people who hold the office tend to be on the older side when they hold the office, and then once they retire from it, well, they're at least 4 to 8 years older than they were when they began. And I guess with the exception of Barack Obama and I guess George W. Bush, I guess that holds true. So it sort of diminished the value of the letter a little bit. And now, of course, Bornstein is saying, it was dictated to me. But in addition to that, the big news that Keith Schilling, the bodyguard, longtime bodyguard for Donald Trump, and then after his inauguration, briefly the director of Oval Office Operations, so working as a White House official at the time, and Alan Garten, who is not a bodyguard, but is in fact general counsel for the Trump Organization, apparently barged into Bornstein's office a year ago. And why we're hearing about it now, I don't know. And ransacked the place. He said raided the place and took basically everything to do with Donald Trump and left. They wanted his medical records. The White House position on this is the White House should take custody of the president's medical records, and there's a point there. Smokey Eye Sanders asked about it yesterday, said, it's standard operating procedure. You bring the president's medical records to the White House. On the other hand, raiding the office, or maybe not coming with a HIPAA form signed or anything like that, or bringing the lawyer for the Trump Organization on official White House business doesn't feel like standard operating procedure to me. But we'll talk more about it. Greg's here. I don't know if you know what standard operating procedure is for the White House, but surely you've never had anybody just barge into your office and demand medical records for a third party, have you?
No, I would call the cops. I mean,
yes.
They didn't. I mean, you have to step back and look at the bigger picture. He's been following Trump's for years, decades. So decades ago, all of those charts would have been a physical chart,
a
folder
papers.
with written things in it by the doctor who couldn't read the handwriting 10 years later. But, you know, it would be like physical stuff.
Yes, okay.
About 5 years ago, just about everybody, and he is a Manhattan physician, presumably wealthy enough to do this, would have started converting to electronic medical records or electronic health records, EMR, EHR, as we were talking about the other day, as you were describing what's happening with the VA now.
You would think. I mean, he's an eccentric guy.
But when you do that,
yeah,
okay, old records may not get converted to electronic. You basically have to scan them in, page by page. And if you've got 20 years worth of records, you may only scan the last 5 or something like that. And the others are still going to be physical. So if you're going to take the president's records, you're going to barge in the office and then go through the I mean, how do you find them? He's got them in a drawer. He's got some in a closet. These are older records. They're stored somewhere. So they're going to go through and ransack the place looking for these old records. And then the newer records are actually going to be on the computer. Do they take the computers? And then Bornstein also says, by the way, they took a picture of me and Trump that was hanging on the wall, and they took that too.
Yeah, that's not a medical record.
The impression one gets is that they came in and they tried to intimidate him. Whether they actually took the records or all the records or even some of the records is kind of unknown.
That's true, and we don't really know. And it's a weird story, and Bornstein's not entirely blameless in all of this, I guess, in the sense that he thinks he was being intimidated because he revealed at some point, I don't even remember him doing it, that Trump had, or he had written prescriptions for Trump for Propecia for the purpose
of hair restoral.
Right. And he's like, what's the big deal? And he's right. What's the big deal?
Bugs Bunny holding up the bottle of hair tonic, H-A-R-E, right? And so he revealed this, and therefore he felt so intimidated by it that he's only talking about this now. I saw another story that said Bornstein is in huge relief when people say, oh, you mean Trump's nutty doctor? And they're not talking about him.
This was a great, it was a great day for him.
Right. Meanwhile, the whole thing was this is funny. I mean, you make fun of my friendships for a long time, right? But the DPRK news service, which apparently is a real news service for the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, that is to say North Korea, is on Twitter.
I guess. Is that the real
I went and looked it up. It doesn't have a blue check, but it says it's the official news agency of North Korea.
How would you verify that?
It's impossible because when you read it, half of it is satire.
That's true. I mean, but if they really claimed to be like, can you call?
But they don't
North
say
Korea?
This is satire, as they often do in these little, tiny letters. And generally, Twitter kicks you off if they find out you're satirical and you didn't say so. So we don't know. It doesn't have a blue check, but they're still there.
They would be pro-North Korean if they kicked you off Twitter. Okay.
So there's one item from May 2nd, 6:41. That's today, 6:41 a.m. May 2nd. Says DPRK News Service, personal doctor of Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un attests that Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un has the strength of 100 men.
Yes.
That's funny in and of itself.
Right.
So Ron Fournier retweets it and says, what kind of man has his doctor lie like this?
Well, I would say probably people from both sides do.
Well, but it's pretty funny. And so you have Trump's older doctor, Bornstein, lying about his sheer physical abilities, and he was the one that wrote about his great DNA, or Ronnie Jackson was the one that wrote about his great DNA. It's hard to tell.
I believe
that's the
Jackson,
Trumpian kind of thing that Trump obviously wrote himself.
Yes, I mean he's said I have great genes before.
Well, he's obsessed by it because he's a white nationalist.
Yeah, I guess so, and I'm not certain what what sort of proof he has of having great genes, but
he's white.
Yeah, I think that's it for him.
This is not difficult. This is not rocket science. That's what he's referring to.
Yes. Well, okay, that's true. By the way, you see this note here? It's from a guy named Josh. I mean, that's what is not the Twitter address, but the handle. But he says he's pretty sure that DPRK News is, in fact, obviously a parody, but run by Pope Hat, a very popular satirical.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic.
Feed. Oh, it's very funny. By the way, you can find Josh
obviously
at Two Ravens.
And obviously this is very timely that it shows the doctor of Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un attests.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, if Pope Pat does it, then I totally get it.
Yes, and I figured, I mean, whether it was Popat or someone else, it clearly was satirical.
Popat's a legal, by the way, on Twitter, who really, from a conservative point of view, as a prosecutorial type, explains a lot about what's going on with the Mueller probe. He's very good.
Yes, well, he's fun to watch, that's for sure. So is the DPRK News thing, and I suppose there really is a DPRK News out there. It's just no one has been. I guess you can't call North Korea and ask. Do they take phone calls? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. You know, if you go on the internet, they kill you. So I don't know.
Right. So they don't know either. They don't know that that's happening. That's why. Okay. Mystery solved. Once we get this peace agreement in place, that Twitter feed is doomed. I think we should maybe just put the brakes on the deal just for that. It's very funny, and I don't want to lose it.
Right. Exactly. So while all of this is going on, lots of other stuff is going on too. There's still a whole lot of fallout from the Michelle Wolf performance. With a couple of days later, people suddenly slowly realizing, maybe the White House correspondents weren't exactly on the right side of this. Same thing happened with the Colbert thing. You have the instant outrage, you have the planned outrage, and a couple of days later, when they sober up, they start thinking about what this all means and realize that they don't look very good in all of this.
Wrong side of history.
And some of the people that are coming out and supporting Michelle Wolf are just great, like Dave Chappelle, for example.
Yes.
Of course she's supposed to speak truth to power. That's what the whole point is.
Yeah, I liked his line. Who do these people think they are?
Exactly. And so, that kind of encapsulated. So I think that's pretty good. Lots of this is a great picture here, and I have this from the Pundit Roundup. Kyle Griffin, of course, who's all over the internet.
He's the whole thing.
Noted that MSNBC put together a list of insults.
Oh.
About President Trump.
About President Trump?
Yes.
Okay, good. I like those.
Made by his cabinet.
Oh.
And it's hysterical.
Okay.
For example, it looks like blurbs for a top novel or a, it's like back of one of those books telling that you have to read it.
But it's okay.
An Idiot by John Kelly. Frickin' Moron by Rex Tillerson. Dumb as Crap, Gary Cohn. A Dope, Intelligence of a Kindergartner, H.R. McMaster. Idiot, Reince Priebus. Remember, that's his porn name.
Yes.
So, it's... I don't understand why people think we're not being respectful of the president when, in fact, his own cabinet isn't particularly respectful of the president.
Yeah, he's what a dope. I don't know. That's a great list. I'm glad it's out there. I wish, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is Gary Cohn gone?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So all that's left is John Kelly, and he's rumored to be on the bubble too. So they're all gone. So he's firing
as well, So you have all of that. So meanwhile, we have this action flick here, as is described on Twitter. Team Trump heads to China. Steve Mnuchin, Wilbur Ross, Robert Lighthizer, Larry Kudlow, and Peter Navarro are going to China to work out the tariff thing.
The tariff thing.
And David Rothkopf writes on Twitter, had that on the Pundit Roundup as well. This is unquestionably the worst international economic team ever deployed by the United States. They make Smoot and Hawley look like Ruth and Gehrig. I'd say it was the D team, but that would be an insult to the letter D. And you step back and you look and you figure, part of the problem here with this particular administration, which we have said from the beginning and the get-go, are unqualified, inept, and really don't belong in the White House, is that they surround themselves with D-level people. Whether it's the physicians, whether it's their advisors, and Steve Bannon, a political genius, or all these other folks. And it's no surprise that you get what you get. One of the interesting things about what's happened in the last 24 hours, I think, and one of the bigger stories combined Washington Post, New York Times. New York Times releases these 47 questions that Mueller's interested in asking Trump. And the Washington Post reveals that those 47 questions that Trump is complaining about were written, of course, by Jay Sekulow, who is Trump's lawyer.
Yes.
So why is it that these things are released? Well, the Mueller people didn't release it. The Trump people released it. And why did the Trump people release it? I'm guessing, even though he may not have been the leaker, Sekulow probably was, I'm guessing it's on the advice of counsel, which is to say Rudy Giuliani, because Giuliani doesn't want him. Nobody who's in that orbit wants Trump to go and talk to Mueller, because Trump lies like a mattress and he'll get himself in trouble in like 5 seconds. And these are wide-ranging discussions, as these questions imply, where one thing can lead to another, and you can just talk and talk and talk until you hang yourself with your own words. And that's ultimately what Trump would do. I mean, that's pretty obvious to anybody. So his side doesn't want him testifying, and they release these questions and then make the claim that, look how this is all going beyond the original mandate of Robert Mueller, and ultimately you're going to have to fire him.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting play.
Yeah, I mean, how they think it's going to work is another story altogether. But it's Washington, and Washington people aren't always the brightest bulbs in the store.
Yes,
or the sharpest knives in the drawer.
That's true. Even the White House correspondents.
Even the White House correspondents. See Saturday, and also see this paper. My favorite Washington columnist who kind of tracks all this stuff is James Hohman, the Washington 202, which you kindly informed me is the Washington area code. Otherwise, people outside of D.C. would never know that. But talks about the big idea, the big picture every day in the Washington Post. And I saw this one this morning, which I was really annoyed at, and said, what the heck is going on here? This is like really dumb. And it's all about how Trump is basically winning for the moment, because no matter what happens, his poll numbers doesn't change, and he's in good shape for 2020 because even though Republicans are going to get clobbered in 2018, the Democrats really have no plan. And I looked at that and said, that's really weird. That's not the kind of thing that Holman usually writes. And it turns out, of course, it wasn't Holman. It was Michael Shearer subbing for Holman because Holman was on vacation.
Don't go on vacation.
So I'm thinking, okay, well, that sort of explains a whole lot in terms of what's going on there. And it's bothersome. Here's the piece. I'll just send it to you. Okay. The Daily 202, Trump's big gambit has paid off, at least for him. Now, the idea that Trump has a floor is well discussed in the press and in the media. But the fact that he has a ceiling, not so much, because he never goes above where he is. People are kind of fixed into where they are. And again, I think I mentioned this on the show the other day. The idea that polarization is so fixed that these numbers are likely not to change actually gives us a clue as to what's going to be happening. Because if these numbers aren't going to change, if they're not going to change, and if the ceiling happens to be stronger than the floor, then he can only go down and he can't go up. And what sort of things would make him go down? Well, that's where Robert Mueller comes in. There's a really, really fascinating piece today in the Wall Street Journal, Election 2018, How Trump Divides the Republicans. President Trump wins high approval ratings from Republicans and unified Democrats in opposition, but the reactions to Trump are masking important divisions within each party. This time, they're focusing on Republicans for this piece. Wall Street Journal, NBC News polling reveals the voters and policies that have divided the Republican Party into two wings and the debates that will shape the party's future. So by overwhelming margins, like 85-15, Republicans approve of President Trump's job performance. Not 90. Other presidents have gotten 90% of their party.
Okay.
But they approve on how he's handling the economy, 80% to 3. But deep divisions, and there's a big difference between one set of voters who fully back the president and another who oppose many of Trump's actions and support them only weakly. That is to say, they're more likely to support the party rather than the president when you ask them that specific question.
Okay.
Are you more a supporter of the party or the president? That's 40% of the Republicans. Are you more a supporter of Trump than the party? That's 54% of the Republicans. And you can argue that this means that Trump therefore has taken over the party, but it's not 80-3 like those other questions. If 40% of the party support the party more than the president, that means that if Mueller actually comes out something damaging about Trump, that 40% isn't necessarily with him forever.
All right. I can go for that.
Right. Here's some quotes from actual people running. In the party not Trump camp, Jonathan Lamb, U.S. House candidate in Indiana, I've supported President Trump in many of his ideals, but I can't support his trade tariff. It's a disastrous proposal.
Oops.
Running for Congress and actually defying the president. And, of course, in the president's party, you can find a lot more examples. Danny Tarkanian, U.S. Senate candidate in Nevada. People in Nevada like what Trump has done with America First policies, are going to vote for someone who supports those policies. So there's the division in the party there. And Trump Republicans support the president with intensity. Party Republicans a lot less so. The difference appears in how many from each group say they strongly approve of Trump. 87% in the Trump First and 46%. That's less than a majority in the Party First. Very different ideas about dreamers. Very different ideas about whether immigration strengthens or weakens the U.S., NAFTA. A lot of the traditional Republican views are reflected in the Party First people. And as far as the president's personal qualities, okay, Party Republicans say Trump has the right temperament. Party Republicans 21%, and Trump Republicans 57%. Okay, say Trump is steady and reliable. The net disagree here. This is the net disagree, agree minus disagree. So 31% net disagreement for Trump is steady and reliable, and net agreement from the Trump side, 80%. So on a whole, the Party First Republicans don't think Trump is steady and reliable. He's in the whole 31%, 31 points there. But Trump Republicans love him.
Well, sure. Okay.
Right? And that's fine, but he's not the entire party. Are the indictments or guilty pleas of 4 Trump campaign members about their potential wrongdoing alone, or did they suggest potential wrongdoing by Donald Trump?
Yes.
Okay. Trump did something wrong. 61% of the Party First people. And it's 64%, no, it's just those other people and not Trump from the Trump Republicans. Big differences. Yeah. And that means that Mueller will play differently when he comes out with his final stuff.
Okay. Well, we'll await that and pick up on a few more themes in our second segment right after this short break. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Roots Radio. Time for our second segment leading up to the midway point, our 10 o'clock. Greg's still with us, still rounding up the news. I was just telling him I was watching in the background. People are sharing video of one of the Proud Boys, the alt-right Street Fighter wannabes, who I guess confiscated a sign from anti-Trump protesters yesterday in Seattle, but are on film struggling mightily to tear this sign in half in front of the cameras and unable to get the job done. I don't know what that sign's made out of, but make all your signs out of that because it was hilarious. These guys, of course, priding themselves on their manly virtues and strength. And,
these signs are made of space-age Kevlar in preparation for our trip to Mars.
I mean, he can't get this thing done, and it's hilarious watching him give up. To be honest, just a good look at him quickly lets you know, all right, well, he may hold those views of the Proud. The Proud Boys are a particularly weird group, and I've not been impressed by their work, to say the least.
Well, we were talking about another particularly weird group, but those who think that Trump is a lock for 2020 re-election.
Yes,
we were riffing off of this piece by Michael Shearer. The Daily 202, Trump's big gambit has paid off, at least for him. And one of the conceits of this is that nothing changes between now and 2020, that 2020 is exactly like it is tomorrow. Nothing will occur. Trump won't be revealed to be a crook
so no
and
news
a international mobster. None of that's going to happen, and so he'll just cruise to re-election because the only thing that matters in Washington are what Republicans in the House and Trump voters think. Funny thing is that the House is, got a pretty decent chance of flipping to the Democratic side, and if that is so, then actual oversight and investigations will take place, and if that's so, Trump ain't going to look so good.
No.
So that's all discounted, and the Robert Mueller stuff is completely ignored. And the idea that a trade war with China, with our brilliant D-team economists being sent over there to make things better, won't occur. I mean, the idea, in a nutshell, that things can only get better for Trump and they can't possibly get worse is insane. You have to have literally a lack of imagination to think that way.
You have to not have been paying attention to anything. Even the past 15 minutes will tell you that's not true.
Right. So we were looking at, for example, at that Wall Street Journal piece about the fact that the Republicans appear united, but they're really not. 40% of the party really continues to have very, very firm doubts about him. And that's why never-Trumpers who are verbal and vocal about it may be a tiny 1% of the entire Republican Party. They actually represent a lot more than they themselves. They're just the brave ones that are going to say it in public and aren't afraid, for whatever reason, of retaliation, because they may raid your office and take the picture off the wall of you standing next to Trump. You never know. Here's another piece in a similar vein by Ron Brownstein in CNN yesterday. Is the GOP at risk of losing Catholics? Which has been a key Republican voting bloc. These are basically the Reagan Democrats. And, of course, those who are actual Reagan Democrats aren't voting anymore because they're a little bit older, and some of them not around anymore. But the whole idea of ethnic Catholic voters, white Catholic voters, who used to vote Democratic because of John Kennedy, but as of the Reagan era, the Macomb County Democrats who then started voting Republicans are still with us. But the thing is that there's a huge, huge gender gap now between the women and the men. Men still supporting Trump, and he's starting to lose the women. Here's a section of that. Slipping support for Trump. Once viewed as the quintessential swing vote, white Catholics since the 70s have usually leaned Republican. Jimmy Carter in 76 was the last Democratic presidential nominee to carry a majority of them, though Bill Clinton squeezed out plurality victories when third-party candidate Ross Perot splintered the vote. White Catholics broke for George W. Bush in both 2000 and 2004. Barack Obama narrowed the Democratic deficit to just 5 points in 2008, and Romney had a crushing victory of 59-40 in 2012, which gives you an idea of the rest of the Obama coalition, by the way, that Obama still won. Trump improved slightly on that in 2016, beating Hillary Clinton nationally among white Catholics by 61-37. More important for Trump is that, according to figures provided by Agista, he significantly expanded the Republican margin compared to 2012 among white Catholics in Ohio, Michigan, and Iowa. He beat Clinton by at least 20 percentage points with them in each state. But recent Public Religion Research Institute polling found white Catholics nationally, they're 50-50 on whether they have a favorable or unfavorable view toward Trump, which means that he slipped since the election. And that slippage presents a stark contrast to the robust standing among evangelical Protestants, three-fourths of whom viewed him favorably in the latest survey.
Okay,
and 3/5 of the men view him favorably, 3/5 of the women are unfavorable.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So the Catholics are trying to decide what to do. The evangelicals are with Trump. And that puts in perspective, a little bit about the whole idea of firing the House pastor there.
Yes, well, the chaplain who was a priest, yes.
Well, so why did that happen? There's still no good explanation for it. But part of the deal is that if you wind up replacing a Catholic priest with, let's say, evangelical pastor, it's going to be a Catholic versus evangelical battle, even among House Republicans.
Yeah.
That's probably not where you want it to go, and it's kind of a dumb move for a politician.
Them, right. Okay, yes.
So there's a whole lot of explanation about what happened there. But that mirrors what's happening in the country. And so it's ironic that small battle in the House happens to be a bigger battle playing out in the country.
Yeah. I'm reminded here of a tangential point, but Newt Gingrich, whose name comes up all the time when people write pieces about where did all this craziness start, they always point to him. Newt Gingrich, a convert to Catholicism. I think his third wife, who is currently, I hope that she was a lifelong Catholic. I guess she could be a convert and still be ambassador to the Holy See, I suppose. But yeah, he made a big deal of it, and it was a very conscious thing for him, not only because of his wife, but because of this big trend towards the Republicanization of white Catholics in the country, and of course their strident pro-life stance, as they like to put it. And he thought it was like a big, super savvy political move, and it's interesting that you would do something so important to your own life based on that sort of what turns out to be a fleeting political moment. I love it. All right, but on to the rest.
Daniel Cox, the Institute's research director, the people who do the polling, said white Catholics are tugged between two impulses in their reaction to Trump. On the one hand, Cox says to the extent Trump frames his policies on protecting Christian and particularly white Christian status, he finds an audience among many white Catholics, if perhaps not as wide an audience as among white evangelicals. But Cox adds, compared with the evangelicals, white Catholics express greater comfort with cultural and religious pluralism, likely due to their own history as immigrants and outsiders trying to gain acceptance in the U.S. So again, take that macrocosm and look at the microcosm in the House. And if you replace a Catholic priest with an evangelical pastor, Peter King and others have already openly taken exception to that and basically are starting to paint it as an anti-Catholic move.
Okay.
Especially if you did it based on what the guy said during prayer.
Yes.
Right? So, why do you do this? Now, yeah, I know that he's retiring, therefore he doesn't really care anymore, but it just seems like a really dumb move and just kind of emphasizes the point that we all know that as a policy wonk, Paul Ryan is not what he's cracked up to be. But it turns out when it comes to politics, same thing.
Yeah.
He's not that good at it.
What has he got? Widow's Peak and...
Well, he's a consensus choice because he's conservative enough that he could get the Freedom Caucus vote and still get the traditionalists in the party. But he really still couldn't get anything done because the Freedom Caucus was basically pushing him to do everything that they wanted.
Well, the politics part fell apart right there.
It did. And so, and he never had the gumption and the backbone, as Michelle Wolf pointed out during the White House Correspondents' Dinner, to occasionally say, okay, we're going to open up the floor to everybody, break the Hastert rule that isn't a rule, get Democrats to support something just to point out to the Freedom Caucus they can't have their way on everything. Boehner would do that on occasion. It was important to do. They hated him for it, but it's still a better way to run things.
And now he likes marijuana, so I don't know. That seems like a good trade.
Right. So anyway.
I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying it seemed like it worked out for him.
The polls point out many white Catholics are still conservative on social issues, particularly abortion, and so that, tends to push them toward the GOP. But because there's so many other people in the country, this is one of those situations where if you're not running up huge numbers, then even a majority, a smaller majority than it used to be, gives you trouble. And so that's the point of that. And, again, I just don't see the Republican machine being just all 100% for Trump, despite the superficiality of the numbers. Because when you dig below the surface, there's a lot of angst there. There's just people who are afraid to say it publicly. And that's because they're afraid that, people are going to raid their office and take the pictures off the wall.
Yeah, that whole thing is... What a story that one is. I'm torn between the unimportance of it and the possibility that Bornstein is himself crazy. But it just seems so interesting. And what a data point it is, once again, in the story of Trump will lie about anything. But
I got an older story for you on that.
Oh, all right.
Right. I mean, there happened to be
more data.
Well, yeah, there's another data point.
Anecdote. Sorry.
Or storify,
data point.
as the case may be.
Okay, excellent.
Right. So in the pundit roundup, one of the things I pointed out was a op-ed in USA Today by Sherry Jacobus.
Okay. I know her,
who is an ex-Republican
right?
Political operative.
Yes, and right, one of the big original never Trumper types.
Right. And so this is a story that I put together a year ago.
Right about the time when Harold Bornstein should have been calling the police.
Pretty much.
Okay.
So it's contemporaneous. And actually the date of this is January 8th, 2017.
Oh, okay. That's a long time ago. Right before inauguration, the empty inauguration.
And here's the tweets, and it's from Sherry Jacobus, who was a Republican operative. Reince, pay attention. Reince. I always mispronounce his porn name. Reince, pay attention. My email was hacked just as Politico was calling Team Trump to inform them that this was coming. This was coming as anti-Trump operatives targeted an online catfishing scheme. Posing as a British solicitor, a con man sought information on the operatives' plans to attack Trump. That's a story back in January 2017. The universe of people who knew the article was coming was very small. After Team Trump was informed, I was hacked before it was published. Should WikiLeaks have personal information that could only be gleaned from my hacked email, the road leads directly to Trump and or his people. This means Trump or Bannon can simply issue the order for political detractors or reporters to be hacked and ensure WikiLeaks gets the info. Hacking of emails is a federal crime with prison sentences. If link between Trump and hacking of emails is found, this is bigger than Watergate, whether the hacking is done by Russians, Breitbart, or some hired gun. If ordered by Trump or his team, we've got a Watergate. WikiLeaks is providing the hacked emails by the hackers, and the hackers are told who to hack. The timing of my hack is interesting. So she started this fight with them about then, having left their service.
Yeah.
And she's been battling with them ever since. And the reason, I don't know where this stands in terms of lawsuits or anything else, but the point I'm trying to make is that she's pointing out early on, trying to bring to people's attention the vindictiveness that's part of that team. And that was when Bannon was still there. And the Bornstein raid, as it's described by him, is all of a piece and all, within the same, kind of mindset there. If
no
you
doubt
do
about
not
that.
cooperate with us, and if you say, and that goes along with the NDAs and the trying to silence Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen's whole shtick and everything that has to do with trying to make sure people don't say bad things about Trump. This has been going on for a long time, is my point.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about that.
So therefore, when you say, well, how come the never-Trumpers are so vocal, but they're only 1% of Republicans, therefore they don't really represent anybody? There's another 40%, 39% that actually feel the same way. They're just uncomfortable about saying so publicly because stuff like this happens.
Well,
that's my point.
That could be. I mean, we've known that about Trump. Well, you and I, and people from the New York area generally have known that has, even if it's not actually happening, it's actually a persona Trump cultivates. He wants people to think that he's vindictive that way, even if he's really not doing it. But he is, and has been doing it to rivals of all sorts for a very long time, and he continues to do it as president of the United States. Sherry's story here is prior to the inauguration, but we were just reading like the other day. I forgot to bring it up that of all people to be lecturing the president of the United States allegedly about ethics, FIFA, the soccer federation, the International Soccer Federation, was warning him off because he makes mobster-like threats to FIFA and rivals for bids on future World Cup events. He was tweeting out the other day that the United States, Mexico, and Canada are putting together sort of a North American bid for, 2026 or something like that, some future event. And he's tweeting out, it would be a shame, I mean, literally using those words, be a shame if other countries who were bidding against us continue to do so because we support those
countries.
You've got
a nice country here. Be ashamed if something happens to it.
It's basically it. He threatened their standing in the United Nations, the foreign aid to them, the countries that we support.
Shame.
They don't support us when we want to. This is a commercial venture going after
the country burned down. Too bad.
Right. So
I'll send you a card.
This is at every level. As a matter of policy, he now moves the same stupid wannabe gangster motif into the policy realm. And one might think that was dangerous, foolish, or out of line.
Well, but what happens over time is that sort of weakens. So now you have Bornstein talking about it. Jerry Jacobus has a career talking about it now. Mm-hmm. And let me just circle back and give you other examples of how the code of silence is starting to break a little bit. Steve Bannon at MSNBC in Rachel Maddow's blog is writing about Tom Price, Trump's former HHS secretary, condemning key Republican healthcare policy. Because the individual mandate was a good thing, and it's awful that it's gone. It's really going to hurt things. And then you have Marco Rubio, of all people, trashing the tax laws worthless to real people. Rubio says that corporate tax cuts enrich the big businesses of doing little for workers. And that is like a really big deal in Republican circles. They're furious at him because he's giving away the game and saying the quiet stuff out loud. And that can only happen when Trump's hold on what he considers to be alternate truth and alternate, facts starts to weaken. So that's what we're starting to see with this whole Mueller probe. That's the impetus, and that's the implication of all of it.
I hope so. People and Marco Rubio, two separate categories, tend to test. Yeah, they tend to test the boundaries from time to time. This is something that Marco Rubio does. Every once in a while, he says something that's out of step with Trump world, and everybody says, "Aha!" Or either people say, "Oh, look, a very significant defection," or people say, "Well, it's Marco Rubio. He does this all the time." And soon enough, like Rand Paul, like others, they cave when push comes to shove. The Price thing is interesting because I don't even know what motivated it. People put together side by side screenshots of his statements when he was HHS secretary. We got to get rid, and the previous 10 years, we got to get rid of Obamacare and the individual mandate. And now that
nobody expected him to do this, so that was kind of
that did not make
odd.
Any sense, right?
So I'm gonna give you, as I leave, this last little piece of polling here. This morning from Morning Consult Politico. I'm just seeing it now on Twitter. Okay. 62% say Trump White House is chaotic. 38% of the GOP says fired Scott Pruitt, and don't fire is just 21. That's GOP. USA headed on the wrong track. 65% of millennials, 66% of women, 64% of Gen Xers, 62% of suburban residents, and 67% of college grads, which just goes to remind you that there's more to this country than just white Catholics and evangelicals. So, again, I don't think that, as somebody put it the other day, Trump's second seasons on TV always did poorly, and perhaps his second year in presidency, reality TV isn't going to do so well either. So I do think things are fraying, and I think that the idea that, like, you can't convince any Republicans is just wrong. Rally voters are lost, but the non-rally voters who reluctantly voted for him are slowly peeling away. And that's why the whole idea that, he's in good shape for 2020 is just stupid.
Okay.
And I'll leave you with that. But this is great work in speaking with my good friend David Waldman, who's not stupid. And we'll be back tomorrow, and we'll finish up on some of these other themes here.
Okay. That would be fantastic to do. Joan was just, I guess, trying to call in here, and I wasn't sure whether she was in fact ready. She wanted to make a comment on Rubio's flip-flop. And you know how it is with Skype these days.
Yeah, it's hard to get all three of us together.
I have to call her, I think, in order to do that. And maybe
so I'll get off and you do that. But yeah, talk about Marco Rubio because he's an odd bird.
Yes. Okay. Well, she's got plenty to say about that, and we'll do
maybe
that.
Maybe in 2020 he'll be running as a Democrat. You don't know.
I'm not that happy about that.
No, I wouldn't either. But listen, stranger things have happened.
Yes, and they will in the next 5 to 10 minutes as well.
Don't forget, their whole Republican thing about 2018 is trying to recruit Democrats who have switched to Republicans as their best candidates.
Yes, right. Although I guess
so maybe that's why Marco Rubio will run as a Democrat.
Maybe it is not infrequent that Democrats are recruiting Republicans who switched as congressional candidates.
We had one running for president, last time.
Okay.
You so well.
Well.
That guy from Virginia.
Ah, yeah, that guy. I remember him. That's right. All right. Well, we'll erase him from history.
Yeah.
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
Take care.
Very good.
You.
Thank
Say
you.
Hi to Joan.
Will do. And thanks again, Greg. Take care. The indications from Joan are that Marco Rubio's already flipped back. So we'll check in on that one. And well, anytime you're ready, Joan. Whether you want to start in now, we're going to be, or you want to wait until after the 10 o'clock break, so we have a larger expanse of time, or if you want to chime in right now, that'd be fine too. I don't mind waiting through with the 1 minute break. Right? It's easy to do. Just now you can wave a flag. You can call me because Greg's gone whenever you're ready. I'm sorry about the way. I really don't know why Skype did things this way, but no point in grousing about it right now. All right. Well, it looks like we'll have her lined up for after the break then. That gives us a few minutes to cast about for other stories, long or short, that we might be able to fit in to the situation. All right, yes. Joan also sent us some source material for the Bornstein story. I don't think there's anything to add to it other than, I guess, the observation that what this means is that Trump will literally lie about anything. We've given you the goofy, funny anecdote before about the lawyer who had some dealing with him who said Trump will lie to you about what time it is just for the practice. The importance of the Bornstein story, if it holds up, and again, Bornstein could be crazy, but so we already know Trump is. I mean, he's nuts, and he could very easily have done this. He could very easily have done this, and Bornstein could very easily have screwed up the story by being crazy and telling it wrong also. That is a very strong possibility. But I actually want to make a serious point out of this. Do you remember when, like last week, if you remember for the serious point, remember last week when breaking into a professional's office where sensitive and personal material might be stored was an outrage and disgusting and a disgrace? Of course, once again, projection, as it turns out that Trump had already, when he made that accusation about the FBI in executing its raid on Michael Cohen, had a year ago executed an extra-legal raid, not by sending law enforcement officials, but by sending his own personal henchmen. And by personal henchmen, I mean both henchmen that he had carried over into federal service with him post-inauguration and those he had left behind at the private Trump organization. Alan Garten had no business whatsoever pulling off any of this stuff, going on this raid, and there was certainly no reason why he should be accompanying someone who had moved over into federal government service. But that's not even, and that's actually the more serious of the points, I guess, in terms of legality. But if you think I'm kidding about the other point, I'm not. That point being, do you remember, like last week again, when it was the practice of savvy journalists of all stripes to chuckle and roll their eyes at the foolish Trump derangement syndrome libtards who were weight and height truthers. This nonsense that he's not 6'3". Why don't you just give it up? Stop tweeting pictures of the supposedly 6'3" Donald Trump standing more or less shoulder to shoulder with people who are reported being 5'9". Stop, making baseless accusations that he's not 239 pounds. Now, honestly, everybody knew he wasn't 239 pounds, but they basically said, I think the default position of the press corps and others was, what's a doctor just going to lie about that? I mean, Trump could probably lie about it. We understand that he's an inveterate liar and he's going to do that all the time. But honestly, this would require multiple doctors at this point to have just been lying through their teeth for the guy about basic vital statistics, how tall he is and how much he weighs. There's not a great deal you can do about lying about your height. It's something we can observe for ourselves. Weight, guess your weight. Could clothes conceal something? Could they make you look heavier than you are? Could they make you look lighter than you are? Yes. You might not be able to tell that the same way you can judge height by eye. But that was the thing. You crazy libs, you just won't give it up. You're deranged by Trump. You're pretending that there's trutherism out there about how much the guy weighs and how tall he stands. And, that was the default position. And everyone would roll their eyes at it. And I kept going about it, too, because I kept tweeting pictures of people with 6'3" Donald Trump. And that wasn't even that wasn't even the part that really needed proving. No one cares how tall he is or whether or not he should be classified as obese based on the height. But the weight was a joke and everybody should have known it. And as a matter of fact, there was some tweeting going on last night. Maggie Haberman, basically expressing her astonishment at all of this, and Marcy Wheeler pointing out, honestly, people with any sense at all knew right away in 2015 that Donald Trump had written that letter. It was so close to Donald Trump's voice. The only thing that left any doubt was Harold Bornstein looked on the surface like somebody who was perhaps just goofy enough to also speak in the same or similar voice as Donald Trump. That was the only possible saving grace. And it turns out, of course, nobody really speaks like him. Even other lunatics don't speak like him. And Bornstein, now why he waits a year to reveal this thing other than the worry about being, thrown off a building top. And, more and more people have that as a recurring problem when they cross Donald Trump and or his friends who happen to be Russian mobsters or presidents of the Russian Federation. So I can understand the worry, I guess, but I don't know. There's still some possibility, as I said, that Bornstein is just out of his mind. It's just that he doesn't crawl that easily into Donald Trump's mind. Donald Trump just forces him to take dictation and print out this letter. Ronnie Jackson, against all common sense and in contradiction to everything everybody was able to observe casually about Donald Trump, insisted on prostrating himself before the Trump god and giving that ridiculous press conference. So, yeah, is it crazy that multiple doctors agreed to do this for Donald Trump? Sure. Is it ridiculous to believe that it could happen in this day and age and under this president? It better not be if you think you're going to be able to judge this administration objectively. That's all I can say. Although I'll say much more after this. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We just had that 1 minute break. By the way, just to give you some idea of the forces I'm up against here at Kagro in the Morning World Headquarters, meaning me, myself, I did finally spend just a little bit of time, and that's all it took, to engineer up the music for the 1 minute break such that I would not have to be bothered with having to fade it out in the background by hand in coming back from this 1 minute break. I prepared it and I put it into soundboard right next to my regular break music and labeled it for 1 minute and everything, and I forgot to use it. So that's really the problem. Not so much that the initial problem that I am too harried. I was going to say too lazy. That's partially true, but too harried to stop and put together the music that I have known I have needed for probably a year and a half now. I finally went ahead and did it, and when I put it in soundboard, I was like, I'm going to forget that. I'm just going to forget that that's there, and out of habit, I'm going to go right to the same spot and hit the button. Maybe I should put them, I don't know whether it's better to put them side by side or not, but I didn't do it. Anyway, that's not news. Joan McCarter is news. She will be joining us in the next segment, and so whenever you're ready, Joan will say we're ready for you. And let's see, I'm going to kind of scan down the line here and take a look and see. I know there are a couple of other items that I thought I should share with you. We did have a question today before airtime from Brucey Roche, who tweeted to me and to Greg the half-joking question, as he put it: can someone who's been impeached run for president again? And interesting question, because Trump is Trump, leads to an interesting answer. I'll give you just the basic answer that I sent back to him if you didn't see that exchange today. And if you have the same question, I mean, it becomes an interesting question in the age of Trump. It's less interesting if you happen to know the answer already, normally, but normal is out the window. One of the possibilities laid out in the Constitution for what to do with someone who has been convicted upon impeachment, and Bruce was clear later on. He said, by the way, of course, I mean someone who's impeached and convicted, or as many people think of it, if you're impeached, you're removed from office. And of course, people will remind you, no, impeachment is just basically the indictment in the House, and then the trial is held in the Senate. And if the Senate finds you guilty, you're removed from office. That is one step removed from the procedural truth of it as well. You can be, you're of course impeached in the House, which is like an indictment. That part is absolutely true. The trial is held in the Senate. That part is also true. If you are convicted in the Senate, are you removed from office? The answer is not necessarily. What the impeachment procedure outlined in the Constitution provides for is that removal from office is one of the possible penalties upon being convicted in the Senate, but it is not required that the person be removed from office. You can come up with essentially some other things. I guess that's not entirely true. There is in Article 2, Section 4, there is the admonition that the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. And that would appear to leave little doubt about whether or not you are automatically to be bounced from office. Now, there would be very little point in bringing an impeachment proceeding for which it was not, under which it wasn't the ultimate goal to remove the person from office. That's certainly true. But there is another mention in the Constitution of the impeachment procedure, and which lays out another possible punishment, which is that the person would be barred from future office holding under the United States. In other words, from federal office and from federal service, presumably of any kind, if they were convicted. And, I think that's an add-on, and you'd actually have to, I think, consciously make note in the, in noting the conviction in the Senate that this penalty was supposed to apply as well. So, could a person removed from office by impeachment run again? And now that, too, is sort of a nuanced question. If the intent of the question is, could they run and should they win, serve again, the answer is not entirely clear unless the Senate is entirely clear in imposing its sentence upon conviction that the person be barred from future federal service. I suppose it's possible that if they don't say so explicitly, then someone could certainly make the argument that that penalty was available to them, that they opted not to impose that penalty, and the judgment of the people, the voters of the United States of America, shall stand as supreme to any inference that might have been drawn that the person was not eligible to serve again, if they didn't simply say so. And let's see. The other part I would add to this is Donald Trump is a lunatic, and the people who work for Donald Trump are lunatics, and they are hell-bent on disrupting our governing norms. So if the question is literally, can that person run again? The answer is typically no, because the person would say, what would be the point of running if I were barred from serving should I win? Donald Trump is the kind of person who might say, for one thing, who cares if I win again? The question is, can I run? And sure I can. I can run all day long. I mean, you could serve 2 terms and not be impeached and run for a third if you want. The question is, what will the courts do about it should you win and attempt to occupy the office? And ordinarily, a person would say, no, you can't do it. You are barred constitutionally. A person like Donald Trump would say, oh yeah, show me. And possibly run. And should they, quote unquote, win election again, either for a third term if uninterrupted or for another term in office having been impeached, he and his idiot sycophant lawyers would probably waste no time making the argument that if the Senate didn't specifically bar me from service, then I'm not barred from service. And even if they did, honestly, it's a question of the Senate, now comprised of different people, once previously having said that they didn't want me to serve, but they've been overruled by the people of the United States. And by the way, my hand-picked Supreme Court, who are still serving despite my having been impeached over questions of the legitimacy, probably, of my initial election the first time around anyway, are there to say, well, I don't know. It's a political question, and it's been settled by a recent election, and surely our founders would have agreed that had George Washington been impeached and stood for election again and won the approval of the people regardless, that he should be allowed to serve. Of course, back then they really took the Electoral College seriously, and they really fully believed that the people didn't speak through elections in the same way that we take that meaning today. But, could he come up with some cockamamie excuse? Yes. Will it be cockamamie? You bet. Will judges accept it anyway, or opt to stay out of it by claiming it's a political question that's been settled by an election anyhow? I don't know. Maybe. Ordinarily, I'd say probably not, but why is the court, why do I worry about these things? Because Neil Gorsuch is on the court. What's he doing there? Because the Constitution doesn't mean anything. The norms that govern our, the established norms that we typically relied upon for the regular and common sense functioning of constitutional government are out the window. And I got some pieces tucked away in pocket that we'll discuss that. Those things we'll save, let's say, for Thursday and Friday, and we'll instead make way for Joan to come through. And let's see, I have a note or two came through from Armando along the way, too. What are you saying here? What we discussed in the ProPublica piece yesterday. Let's see. Yes. Michael Cohen represented multiple clients in New York who allegedly staged car crashes to cheat insurance companies, according to Rolling Stone. Oh, yeah. So that's true, according to Rolling Stone. I guess according to ProPublica, too. And we figured that one out a little while ago, thanks to ProPublica's fantastic reporting. All right. There's much more that we could talk about with regard to impeachment, by the way. I did see an excellent article that will tamp down on perhaps some of the impeachment mania and remind us all how, what a big hurdle it really is to try and get a president removed from office, and that you, of course, should be approaching it soberly. But then again, we also have a few other articles that would make the argument that, screw approaching things soberly. The Republicans haven't done so for decades, and look where we are, and maybe it's time for the Democrats to throw caution to the wind, too. And then, of course, the countervailing argument of, well, if we do that, then where are we? What's the difference between us and them? And aside from the answer of, they're crazy, and we're not, we might not have a whole great deal to stand on. But perhaps we could establish some of those things to stand on and differentiate between us and them in some other way. I think we could probably be up to the task. Joan McCarter is here, not specifically for that purpose, but you're certainly welcome to bring it up.
We can talk about that.
Sure.
Was it impeachment mania?
That's one of
when I'm listening and when I join you live, I'm not sure you're talking about the same thing because there's a bit of a delay.
Right. Plus, I'm bananas, and I don't know what I'm doing from one moment to the next. But that's something that I do want to address in the next couple of days. Not necessarily today, but I found a very interesting and sober article approaching the subject of impeachment, and I'm not usually given to that kind of caution about the subject, but it was a historical document of sorts, a piece that urged the process forward, but laid out, I think, appropriate cautions for the Nixon case, contemporaneously with the Nixon case, and things that remind us that among normal people, and again, Republicans don't count among those normal people, Republicans in Congress, especially historically on the question of impeachment, because of how they dragged their feet during the Nixon process and how wildly they went off the rails in the Clinton process, and are currently going off the rails again, threatening a Rosenstein process. Republicans have never believed in this sober approach to impeachment, but it makes good governing sense, and so we're therefore torn between our interest in governing well and our interest in saying there may be no getting rid of these cockroaches except with the DDT of abnormality. And I'm sorry, we're going to have to spray one more time, and it's banned again after we get rid of these guys. But then, is it hypocrisy? Sure, it's terrible for the environment, but so are these roaches. That's all I can say is that we may have to go, we may have to go crazy from time to time to remove the crazy. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but this was a very sober approach and probably a long read and something we could, but I'll share it with you and send you the link so you can take a link
in the comments. Marcos makes a really good point on impeachment.
Oh.
And the political one for right now, for the immediate term for 2018.
Marcos,
oh my goodness,
please.
We've got some excitement downstairs.
That's not Marcos, though. But it does sound exciting.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. We could do live reporting on the situation. It could be really interesting.
Republican voters are not particularly motivated right now.
Okay.
They aren't seeing any benefit out of the tax cuts. They are losing steam on Obamacare repeal and kind of coming around to the idea that that was a false promise on the part of Republicans.
Okay.
The one thing that could really motivate them, however, is the threat of impeachment of Trump.
Okay.
If they think a Democrat is going to win and impeach Trump, they could turn out to support their Republican.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's true. Or they could say, hallelujah. Please get rid of him and we can go back to being real Republican. But probably not. Yeah, I would think that they would be, it could be a motivating factor. Certainly. Although on the other hand, it will be used as a motivating factor no matter what happens. Like if you say, no, impeachment is off the table, they'll simply say, no, it isn't. Vote this way.
No, they're going to use it anyway. But if Democrats actually start running on it, that will wake more people up. That will make more people pay attention.
It's
so
reality.
You're
really,
damned if you do, damned if you don't. The thing is, I don't think that it's necessary for motivating Democratic voters in 2018 to turn out. There's ample stuff to make Democratic voters turn out in 2018. And, if we can keep, maybe impeachment sort of our little secret. Yeah, right. So anyway, that's just that thinking that I tend to agree with for 2018.
I worry about it.
But if there were grounds for impeachment for any president, he's up there nosed ahead of George W.
Sure. Right. It comes down to a similar question. It doesn't strike me as all that different a question than, for instance, saying, well, don't we really need a center-right Democrat to run in this particular district, versus progressives who say, no, run hardcore progressive everywhere. And say, well, I see what you mean, and I see what you mean, and I don't know who's right, and there's an awful lot on the line, and I guess the question is, which one do I ultimately think gets a D in that seat for the purposes of establishing control of Congress? And, but that causes eye rolls on both sides of that particular question. But
of course it does.
It's but that's
it's a fight we have to keep having.
Yeah.
But even if we're not impeaching, we've got to get in there and have a Congress that can maybe stop some of the worst of the damage.
Well, that's true. Yes, although again, we have a sad history on that front too. But
yeah, we do have a sad history there too.
But the fact is that we do have that history, and it's written, and we survived it, and everything. And so, I mean, as bad as things seem, and as much as I'd like to see the reality of impeachment for this particular president, and for some other ones in the past too, and how important I think it is. There's also the matter of, well, if we were to survive and be able to write this history, that might be the best we can hope for in certain situations. And maybe it's good enough to do that. But on the other hand,
it's not how it was supposed to be.
No, it's not. You're right. That's exactly it. I mean, that's the bottom line of it. And
thank you, Newt Gingrich, for ruining yet another institution.
Yeah, and the Catholic Church along with it, apparently.
Yeah.
Good call on that conversion, by the way. All right. Anyway, I won't question his personal faith. Yes, I will. But I will say I don't, or something like that, or smoky eye, something. I don't know. You tell me what the worst insult is. I can't tell you anymore. I got no idea what people think is insulting.
Nothing is the same anymore, Kagro.
No. It's all gone weird. So anyway,
you try to come up with new words to describe the latest atrocity, and they're just, the words don't have meaning anymore.
Yeah,
they don't have impact anymore because it's just too nuts.
There's too many things that are too basic to what we're supposed to be doing here the lines have been crossed and the norms obliviated. I don't know whether to spend time on those things or spend time on the closer calls that might have larger implications or move more people to believe that there's something out of control happening. Or do you spend time saying, the guy was elected, we don't have his tax returns, we don't have a medical report on the guy, we got nothing. All the things that are supposed to be givens about congressional or presidential candidates were not only not provided, but lied about actively so that he could fake his way through the election. Maybe because he thought he wasn't going to win anyway, so what's the point? Or maybe because he thought, well, if I do win, and I'm trying to engineer that, I don't want anybody to know this bad stuff about me. So, and that's enough. So do you concentrate on, well, he's violating the emoluments clause, or he could be committing treason, or his national security advisor is an active spy, or any of those things, which would ordinarily do the trick? Or do you say, the basic premise upon which he stood for election was false, and we should do something about that? But courts don't like that one. They won't do it. Buyer beware. Can you believe that's our policy? The bottom line is, he lied about how much money he had, to whom he owed it, and how much he was paying in taxes, if any at all, whether he was healthy enough to occupy the job despite being the oldest person ever elected, and almost the heaviest person ever elected to the office. But,
McKinley? Was McKinley the big one?
Not McKinley. Taft was...
Taft.
Yes. I think he's the biggest. But then again, who knows? Because we don't know. How much does the guy weigh? I don't know. What's his blood pressure? Don't know. He's astonishingly excellent and has great genes, but he cannot walk across a putting green. So you tell me, whether he's in good shape. But then again, I guess they say, what's the difference? Just wait for him to drop dead and then you'll know. Okay. Well, ultimately, I suppose you can't, if it's true that you can't cheat death, is that really the only basis for this? I guess, but now one of the points about impeachment is, why would anybody who runs for president release their taxes or tell you what their health is? Or why would any Republican anyway? So you're just going to get a series of complete lunatic liars. What are we in for if it's now okay to do this?
Yep.
And I mean, and of course it's okay, because if I bring it up and somebody else says, well, someone new does it. Well, Trump did it. That's precedent to one person. Or if you're Brendan Nyhan, well, that's whataboutism. And you can't have that.
So and you're back again to how Newt Gingrich ruined everything.
I guess so. That guy
deciding to impeach Clinton.
Yeah.
Over consensual whatever it was, hanky-panky in the Oval Office. That broke us. That broke impeachment.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Because now if you have a legitimate reason, whether it was for George W. Bush or Donald Trump, the immediate response, this is tit for tat for Clinton.
Absolutely.
Okay, but Clinton was tit for tat for Nixon, but all right, sure. You bet. And then now we're stuck forever. Okay, well.
Forever. I think the Founding Fathers had far too much faith in humanity.
Maybe so. I will say they've been very clever, the Republicans, in figuring out, what the Constitution doesn't say. I mean, for all the practice they took of show me in the Constitution where it says, I thought they were just joking, but it turns out that they really do know what the Constitution doesn't say.
Right.
Of course, that's easy to do. If you don't read it, you can just say that. Like the president's doing it right now. There's nothing in this set of questions, which I made up, about collusion. Yes, there is. No, there isn't. Yeah, it's right here. Big deal. Who cares? So it's there.
And by the way, I'm pretty sure it was Rudy Giuliani who leaked those questions.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why you brought Rudy Giuliani in, right? To negotiate with Mueller and do whatever. Mueller.
Yeah.
I want to call him Mueller, but
that's
it's
fine
Mueller.
with me.
I know. Bring him in, start him negotiating, and then have him from an inside position where he knows what's going on, throw as many spanners in the works as he can.
Yeah,
that's my opinion anyway.
I would think so. I mean, it certainly stood to reason. There's no other reason really to bring Giuliani in.
No.
Has he got any kind of security clearance? Because I did read this morning that Trump is now out of lawyers with security clearances.
Which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, really, there probably aren't a lot of people in Trump's orbit who should have security clearances.
That's true, and you don't know what they're going to do with them. And it might be a good that probably for Trump, it's probably good leak proofing. If none of the people can get their hands on material, it's safer.
Definitely.
But I don't know. He's also probably maybe he's just saying, in the end, when I'm convicted, I'll plead ineffectiveness of counsel because none of them had security clearances. They couldn't get the exculpatory material out of the government. Okay, but that doesn't work. And he could declassify it too, I suppose.
He could.
Or give them temporary security clearances. But I notice he hasn't done that. That is weird too.
I have no idea.
He's been burned by it, by his own son-in-law. So who does he trust now?
His doctor?
Country. No, can't do that either. Ronnie Jackson, the last doctor who would help him out, the Deutsche Bank of his doctors, he screwed that up too by nominating him to the VA, and now there's nobody who'll lie for him. Right. I don't know whether the new guy will do that.
But also, did you see the bit where Jackson leaked or blurbed or blatted out stuff about Karen Pence?
Yeah, that's how. I didn't even discuss what he leaked, essentially. But yeah, that's how Karen Pence and Mike Pence came to complain about him. And now Isaacson is stuck saying, yeah, Trump's wrong about the allegations about Jackson not being corroborated. They were corroborated by the Pences.
By the Pences. And still, Trump is on this attacking Tester over Ronnie Jackson and how Ronnie Jackson was wronged.
Yes.
And Mike Pence dutifully goes to wherever he goes and says Joe Arpaio is great. Donald Trump thinks so, and I agree too.
Right. It's unbelievable.
Except it's totally believable.
Oh, right. Yes. Other than not being believable at all, it is totally believable. That's where we are in America. And we have 2 minutes to contemplate that and come back for another segment. And I don't know, if anything relevant has happened anywhere else in government, you'll be sure to let us know. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching Kagro X or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Joan McCarter still with us through the break, thankfully, trying to make sense of what hasn't been happening, I guess, actually in Congress this week. That is to say, nothing. They're not doing anything. Are they on break as well?
Week-long recess.
Okay. But you did have
May Day recess? I don't know why they took the first week of May off.
I don't know. Communists that they are. And that's okay with me. However, there was something we alluded to earlier when I was talking with Greg, the Marco Rubio situation. Did I read correctly in the notes that you sent me that he had flipped back from his flip? Is this a flip-flop now? Is he back
It's kind of a
with Trump?
It's a kind of a half flip. He's trying to figure out. He's
a diver.
He's got a plan. Marco Rubio has a plan for 2020, and you can see it in his beady little eyes.
It's a 2-point plan,
and it's about the tax cuts. So he's trying to figure out how to still be a Republican, but how to put himself forward as, like back in the days of immigration reform, a Republican Democrats can work with. So he comes out, he says to The Economist that, yeah, this was not good for the American worker at all. Big corporations have only used this to make more money. So, okay.
Yeah.
And then his staff on Tuesday clarified a little bit, saying, it really isn't that great for the American worker, and if Marco Rubio's amendments had passed, which he didn't set as a condition for his passing the whole bill, for his voting for the whole thing, then it would have all been better. So Marco Rubio now says he is on a path to reform the conservative movement so that it will address economic disruption and social disaffection.
Oh, will it?
Meaning, he can't really say income inequality because that can't come out of a Republican's mouth.
Yeah, that's hippie stuff.
But that's what he's sort of dancing around, I think. He's going to be the guy to reform the conservative movement to fix that. But then, this morning, National Review publishes his op-ed entitled 2 Cheers for the Corporate Tax Cuts.
2.
He's
okay, so not a full 3, but it's okay, but it could be better if they had passed my amendment, which they didn't.
Right.
I gotcha. 2 cheers.
But at the same time, he
why?
says, overall, the Republican tax cut bill has been good for Americans. That's why I voted for it.
All right, sure.
So it's Marco Rubio being Marco Rubio.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. So, par for the course, as expected, and just like the other comparison we were making, Rand Paul, with a guy who will just stake out a position, flash news report, the Republican coalition fraying at the edges, and then come vote time, he's not there.
There he is.
Okay. Or depending on how you look at it. He's not there for the people who had hope that he was going to stand in the way of the Trump administration's goal, but there he is not standing in the way at the same time. So you know where he's going to be, and the answer is not with you.
Not with you. Rand, though, tends to be a little bit more haphazard in it.
Oh.
He just sort of gets wild hairs.
Yeah,
Rubio...
Okay.
I think there's much more political calculation, and it's him trying to position himself however appears to be most to his benefit.
Okay.
If he thinks being the moderate on immigration and inserting himself in immigration debates is going to work, he does that. And the minute he sees that not working, he becomes a hardliner again.
Okay.
So what was his big role in trying to reform immigration previous to 2016? I think now it's going to be this economic, not inequality, whatever he calls it, reforming the conservative movement. Yeah, Rubio.
Yeah, okay. Well, he's a particular problem, certainly the case. All right. Well, at least we know where he is at the moment and how he was going to get there, and it's no surprise. This is something he does all the time. You're right. There is a significant difference between the way Rand Paul does it, and I mean it's still inept positioning, but it seems clear that Marco Rubio thinks he's being super clever and threading a needle. And Rand Paul is just sort of, wow, what's going to get me in the news?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Rand's an odd guy.
Yes.
Occasionally amusing, occasionally and infuriatingly on point. It drives me nuts when he does something that I completely agree with.
Yes, although now you know that the same thing happens with Russian trolls. It makes a lot more sense of these things. You stake out a position that's designed to make American liberals and American progressives say, oh, there's a point. But if I know you're a Russian troll, I know why you're making that point. I've gotten to that point with Rand Paul. I understand what you're saying, but I don't trust or believe you. So I'm in agreement. You make a great point. I wish you would find somebody I trusted to make that point instead, or would commit to vote with them on that point in situations where it would help and you would actually pass something.
Next week.
Oh.
Possibly on, say, net neutrality, which Democrats are going to force to the floor this month.
Okay.
Either next week or the week after. That would be a great thing for Rand Paul to decide he should take a stand on and stick with it.
Okay.
Because right now we've got Susan Collins, and it appears that Susan Collins is going to stay there.
Yes. Okay.
And we need just one more to overturn FCC's overturning of net neutrality rules.
Great.
Yeah. We're that close. I mean, it's probably not going to happen.
But, all right.
Yeah. So that's net neutrality.
Okay. That's another subject. What is Armando sending us here?
Armando is confused about this thing happening. It's a Jonathan Swan tweet about the Pompeo. He calls it a confirmation hearing with Trump, Pence, and 11 cabinet officials expected to attend. Pompeo has this is not his confirmation hearing. This is his swearing in.
Yeah, I mean he's
been passed.
In, right? Okay,
that's
odd.
Cleared through.
Jonathan Swan is from Axios.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
fake news.
Yeah, although I mean that's a pretty big mistake, but okay. What he means,
it's a very big mistake.
Yeah. Confirmation hearing today. Show of, and I'm not even certain like why you would think it was a show of force. No matter what the 11 cabinet officials are attending, what does it mean? It's a show of force for us, even for swearing in. Like
it's Trump. It's probably more a FU to Tillerson.
Could be. Certainly.
Bye, guy. Look how much we all love the new guy. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, this does feel like the sort of thing that he
I
orders.
think it's, okay, the whole administration on board, my entire cabinet is on board with...
Well, hell, they better be.
War with Iran.
Oh, okay. War with Iran. A show of force behind Secretary Pompeo, who will, as Secretary of State, probably violate the main, directive of the State Department and push for war as opposed to diplomacy and okay, so that could be it. But this does have the feel of like the idea that I don't think anybody usually attends the other cabinet officials' swearings in. This is a Trump thing. He let it be known that they're all expected to attend. He likes to take pictures. What the result of this will be another picture of Trump seated at his desk. Don't get up. Don't bother yourself there, sir, or stress your heart or whatever it is. He sits at the desk and he arrays people behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done this a couple of times. After lunches, he brings the cabinet in and gives them lunch in the cabinet room, and then he lines them up behind him. He sits. They take a photo. He puts that in his Twitter page as his header picture. And But
this time he's actually going to the department, the State Department.
Oh, he's leaving
traveling
the room
for the photo op.
Well, then they're going to have to put another chair there for him to sit in, and all the people to take
and
photos
his little
around
table.
him, like the
his
grandma at the. Yes, right.
Does it require signing anything?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think it requires it, but they'll probably bring something along.
Would he remember to do it if it did?
Right, he walked out. He just got one of those certificate of participations from Staples that he's going to sign. Congratulations for participating in our government as Secretary of State. Here you go. And he'll have to have that photo taken. Maybe he'll take the picture either shaking his hand or the picture of his wife holding a Bible or something, doing the fakey fake swearing in. And then we'll get that picture. I love when he puts those pictures in his Twitter header, because when you look at Twitter on your phone or on TweetDeck or something, and you open up the profile, they put your avatar in a circle, like right in the middle of that. And because he sets up all his pictures the same way, like a bar mitzvah or wedding photo with him in the middle, and then wings of people, the avatar photo comes up in the center all the time, and he's in the center of all the pictures, and it always is superimposed on your phone or on TweetDeck over his face in the photo, because he occupies the same space in every photo, and it always looks like he's holding a giant Donald Trump mask in front of his face, and everybody else's head is the same, the regular size, and photo after photo after photo, it looks like that.
Check the current one. This one's really weird. The perspective on it is very strange, and he looks teeny tiny.
Yeah. Oh, he's with the Army, the West Point football team, I think. So they are huge.
Yeah.
I assume
they are huge.
And he does look really small, and he's 6'3", 10,000 pounds. I don't know why he looks so bad.
That's a really strange picture.
It is a weird one. I call everyone's attention to that. He should. Everyone should take a look at whatever, and it doesn't matter what photo he puts up there, because every picture is the same for Donald Trump. Me in the middle, and the stupid idiot people I summoned to take pictures with me arrayed to the side, even if they're his cabinet officials.
Yes. And his avatar picture, do you know the story behind that picture?
Oh, no. Just that sad sack of a face.
He wanted to look like Winston Churchill.
And so...
That's what this official picture is about. It's his doing Winston Churchill.
Well, okay. Terrific. He's got great range, Donald Trump does. That's do blue steel, Donald. That's his thing. So he looks like, or he thinks he looks like.
He thinks he looks like Winston Churchill.
Oh, that is bizarre.
Resolve. Okay. We'll fight them on the beaches.
I have wondered about that because it's a dumb picture. I mean, it's not a good photo of him, and he looks perplexed or like he's squinting at a script of some kind, or just he's zoning out in some way. He cannot.
All
open
of those
his eyes.
Things could be true, but supposedly it's showing resolve.
I see. Well, that's great. He really does look tiny in this photo, though. And
it's a really weird picture.
It's very odd. And they're not the biggest football team going either. But
no,
it's a good thing.
Of course, you saw. Speaking of bringing sports teams, you saw the Olympics kerfuffle.
Yes, and though the Paralympics or the
Paralympics.
Yes,
it was the entire Olympics team, para and
they were all there. Okay.
Those who went, and a lot of them refused to go, of course, because they wouldn't be wanting anything to do with Donald Trump.
Right.
But the remark to the Paralympics team about how hard it was to watch sometimes.
Very difficult.
Very.
I guess who knows? And of course, people were trying to make excuses. The press this was even before the smoky eye thing. Well, he may have meant he doesn't have enough time. Sure.
Yeah, that wasn't what he meant.
The executive time guy who watches TV for 4 hours a day. Where am I going to find time to watch television? And the answer is you didn't watch any of it because you don't care. So, but all right, well, that's another dumb controversy of his own making.
That and the oak tree that he and Macron
planted. Nice French. I like that. Yes.
They dug up?
Yeah. Do we believe the story? It sounds plausible. Oh, well, it needed to be in quarantine, which I could see that they didn't maybe pay close enough attention. He wants to plant that one. So, all right, we'll plant it for a couple hours and then we'll put it in quarantine. As opposed to his remembering he wanted to do that 3 weeks in advance, sending the tree ahead, not bringing it with him as a carry-on item. I don't know. I think Hunter had the better call, which was that they moved it to a better spot, and they had only planted it there in the first place because that was as far as Donald Trump was willing to walk on the lawn. Just put it here. Move it later. And that could be right. We will find that to be the truth.
Good call.
I think he's right. Yeah, that's where we are in America once again. All right, so we'll find out. I guess I'll look up one day how long does it take to quarantine this tree, and we'll run the clock on it. And
we will be paying attention to this tree.
Yes, apparently, and
so whether it shows up again.
Yes,
I'm betting a lot that it does not reappear.
That would be my guess. And will Macron be insulted by this? Will he forget about it? Because I read this morning that he accidentally may have called the Australian Prime Minister's wife delicious. I don't know if you saw that news.
He's French.
Right. It may not be an accident. That's the highest compliment I can pay you. To call you delicious. French cuisine is exquisite. You should be, it's like the smoky eye of French discourse, I guess. Maybe. I don't know.
Speaking of smoky eye, did you catch any of the briefing yesterday?
A little bit.
Did you notice the lack of smoky eye?
No.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders was,
deprived of the smoky eye. I didn't notice it the first time.
To look at Sarah Huckabee Sanders as a normal person without raccoon eyes.
I don't think I had noticed it when it was there, because don't know.
I noticed particularly it showed up all of a sudden when we had Scaramucci there.
Yes, he brought that.
Bringing in the stylist. That's when it showed up.
Right.
And a couple of times, I think she had applied it herself, and once missed it on one eye. This is what happens when you have to watch C-SPAN and you have to watch.
Oh my God.
The
one
news
eye.
every day, cable news to keep up with the news. You pay
what
attention
happened?
to
Somebody
the dumb
punch
stuff.
you? What? Okay.
But the time she showed up with only one eye done was very entertaining.
That's awesome. Wow, that's a good one. Okay, so here it is with. I'm having to go to Google Images to see. There's the smoky eye. Although I think, frankly, it makes our eyes look a little too close together. But whatever.
It's just very scary. That it's scary.
It is a little odd and dark.
Quite nice yesterday without it.
Okay.
Anyway, it was just sort of jarring to see her all of a sudden looking not.
Wow. Well, that's a big...
Like she's going clubbing.
Change. Oh, yeah. It isn't really an office thing just yet. I don't think the smoky eye, but what do I know? But maybe she's changing that for all of us. So, okay, she abandoned it as a result of the intense criticism, I guess. Didn't want to make it the subject of questioning, I suppose.
Perhaps. It was just, I thought, notable after the whole ridiculous blow-up.
Yes. Well, it is.
I think I had heard that Maggie Haberman kind of started the being offended on Sarah's behalf part. Totally
she was the first one out?
The part about the lies.
Maybe. I did see that she made, I thought just she really was explicit about it when she said, I don't understand what people are talking about. Was there not a reference to her eyeshadow? Is that not about her appearance? And it was like, man, that's elementary reading comprehension.
Yeah.
Maggie, read the line.
Our theory is that she needs somebody on the inside now that Hope Hicks is gone.
Yeah.
Hope was Maggie's big buddy in the White House, we think.
How did she do it?
And with Hope gone, she's got to have another ally.
I guess. It just seemed like, who cares? And I don't even think that Huckabee Sanders will think it's a big deal unless you make it one. I don't know that she would have known to be insulted by it terribly about the eyeshadow anyway.
No, because it was about the fact that she stands up there and lies every day.
Yes. Honestly, Haberman could have just said, that's what presidential press secretaries kind of do. And it is to some extent. It's not nearly to this extent, I don't think.
But they had to gin up the personal attack.
Yeah.
And create, I think, this distraction from the fact that the ultimate point that Michelle Wolf was making was that you are buying these lies because you are profiting from them.
Yes.
You are covering Trump for your own profit, and you have created this monster.
That's absolutely right about that.
And I think that was the point at which all of the Beltway media, the traditional media, the Village media had to say, oh, we can't have that standing out there. Look, she attacked Sarah Huckabee Sanders' image, her face, or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. It makes zero sense to me, and it certainly they could have had that fight over saying she lied. And then it would have been substantive in a way, and instead,
but if
this
they
is much easier.
Have the fight over her lies, then they have to address the fact that they're often not calling her on her lies.
That's true.
Because the lie thing comes back to them is the free press.
Because they write it down.
Yeah,
I found that very interesting and odd, and I was hoping this would be gone by now, but I guess it's not. But I don't know. I guess if you want to make an issue of eye makeup, I'm okay with that too. I got some things to add about the president. The eyes is where he doesn't put
makeup.
Yeah, that's where he doesn't put his makeup, which is
they need
weird.
to do a little bit more blending there.
Yes, they could stand for that. I got a great tweet the other day that somebody christened his look the smoked ham eyes. I thought that was pretty good.
That's very good.
That does the trick. So, Holy Terror 44, in case you're wondering who did that one. Well done.
Well done.
Yes. All right. I don't know. Anything else that we should bring to people's attention in the next minute or so, or things that might be coming up?
Things that might be coming up. We're going to have the hearing for Gina Haspel.
Oh.
Next week.
Okay.
The torturer who wants to be head of the CIA.
Yes.
Who the CIA has fallen all over themselves to create a PR campaign for, which is completely not a normal thing that the CIA does when it comes to confirmation hearings. We had Condoleezza Rice yesterday. I had to go off a little bit yesterday on Condoleezza Rice and the Bush administration and the Obama administration on the fact that a Bush administration official can come out and defend torture once again by saying 9/11 changed everything. If you were not in a position of authority on 9/11, you have no idea the pressures we faced to make sure this country wasn't attacked again. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, people do have some idea. Many of them were under that pressure while you were hiding. But okay. I mean, the families of those killed in the attacks.
This is back to our setting of precedent and changing of norms that we talked about at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We did argue that there was a reason to impeach George W. Bush. We argued vociferously once there was a new administration that it was incumbent upon that new administration to deal with this, to not sweep the war crimes under the rug.
Yeah.
To face them however they best determined by shining a light on it.
Yeah.
Truth and Reconciliation Committee, putting people in jail, whatever it was going to be. That did not happen. And here we are again with a torturer about to become head of the CIA.
Yeah. And is this the context in which we learn that some of the torture videotapes may have survived? Is that what just brought this story back? Or I saw it this morning.
Hear that.
Okay. Well, I'll share that one with you. I'll put that in the roundup so we can all take a look that I didn't make it up. Ex-CIA official says some torture videotapes may still exist. So we have that competing from 20 hours ago, competing with the previous story in which Haspel says she acted appropriately in destroying those torture tapes, but I guess not thoroughly. Appropriately, yes.
Yeah.
No, actually, but and certainly not. So let's see, what's the story? Spencer Ackerman has a story, and you got to give credence to Spencer Ackerman at this point. Reporting for the Daily Beast.
Can you share that link with me?
Yes, I will. We can do that now, and I can thank you for coming by. What's the story? I know we discussed this a little bit during the break. Are you on for next week? Off for next week? What do you think? You're not sure yet?
Let's say on for next week.
Okay, excellent.
And then off for the following probably 4.
Oh my, okay.
Because I'm leaving the country for 3 weeks, and then the day I start work again, have to take the dog in first thing for surgery. Because, of course, the dog breaks herself the week before, or 2 weeks before we're going on an overseas vacation.
Was that part of the excitement today?
No, that was last week.
Oh, all right. So just general ruckus this morning. No
general
particular reason for it. Okay.
Somebody walked by the house.
Oh, well, you can't have that.
Yes.
They have smoky eye at the time?
Possibly.
How do you really know they were walking by the house? Well, okay, I trust the dog, and we trust that you'll have a great trip, and that they'll let you back into the country and everything.
Maybe they don't have to let me back into the country.
I mean, that might not be the worst thing, and we move operations overseas to, Might be nice. Okay, well, all right. It's summertime coming up, too. People will be taking vacations. We'll deal, and, of course, we'll be in touch behind the scenes anyway. And you can always share stories that you think we ought to bring to people's attention. Thanks for coming by today. It's a hell of a time to have to catch up on things again. But I appreciate it.
It was fun gossiping with you, though.
It is fun, and it gets me through the days, one at a time. Thank you very much, Joan.
You're most welcome.
Hope it does the same for you. Okay, excellent. We look forward to it. And, time now to hand the microphone over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And now this might be easier to get all those stories in. What did we miss today? Or what will Justice be highlighting in addition to what we've spoken about? Well, former CIA Chief Mike Hayden insists we never said the election wasn't affected. That sounds interesting. And then Trump went right out and said, yes, they did. I missed that. On the rest of the menu for the day, police fired rubber bullets and tear gas at peaceful May Day protesters in Puerto Rico. I had not heard that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Unbelievable. Fake Antifa posts tricked police into the massive show of force for the neo-Nazi rally in Noonan, Georgia. Interesting story. And Trump's big mouth just undercut his own administration. What? In their defense of his Muslim ban. Unbelievable.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Also coming up on the next program, the Rod Rosenstein story highlighted once again, and a new study reveals university lower division science textbooks are woefully underrepresenting climate change. How did that happen? Maybe in light of the AP and ProPublica story on the Koch brothers? We'll find out.